GCCs have come a long way over the past 2 decades. India now, GCC is the topic of discussion everywhere, including in campuses where everybody looks forward to getting a job in your centers, right? Now, we used to have the captive centers earlier, before IT services became such a big deal, right? JECIS and all, when the GenPact happened after the after GE gave away that business, right? And since then, there has been a lot of evolution of the captive center, and it's no longer just a cost arbitrage kind of situation. It has true engines of innovation, a lot of high-tech work is going on here, global business transformation. I think you're serving not only your parents, but other clients also. Isn't that correct? In some cases. That's a big competition to LTI Mindtree. And you're actually helping them set up business. Okay. Jokes aside, but India today has almost 2,000 GCCs, and the number is climbing. According to various sources, more than 1.6 million people are employed here. Market is projected to reach almost $120 billion by 2030. But as they grow in scale and ambition, the environment is getting increasingly complex, uncertain, right? There's a lot of global talent policies, regulatory shifts, trade realignments. So many trade agreements are being signed left, right, and center by everybody, not just India. Especially after 20th of January, a lot of the free trade agreements and CEPAs and other kinds of inter-country agreements have really been accelerated, right? Which also makes things complex for everyone involved, including companies. And then the increase in the H-1B visa fees recently to an unprecedented $100,000 from $1,000, right? It's forcing a lot of companies to rethink talent deployment and build stronger local capabilities in India. So there's a lot of pressure on data governance, cybersecurity, IP protection, and there's a lot of other stuff, but I don't want to bore you by telling you the same things that you know. So let us now, today, basically we will examine how GCCs are positioned in this kind of a rapidly changing geopolitical and trade environment, how Indian and global leaders, you can ensure innovation and global competitiveness, and how you keep your growth vision on track. So to set things up, first I would invite Sumit. Sumit will make a quick presentation on future-ready global capabilities. Let's see what he has to say. Maybe we can get a few cues from there as well.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yes. Thank you for assembling here. It's an August audience, and it's my privilege to start us off. I think, sorry, this. Yeah, I think some of it, Alokesh has already sort of hinted at. There are all kind of rosy pictures that are being painted about the GCC world. We were just talking here, there is not a day that goes by when there is not a headline in the newspapers nowadays about what GCCs are doing and how great they are. Of course, from a perspective, we have about 1,800 today, but the estimates for where we will reach by 2030 varies somewhere between 2,500 to 3,500. Employing about 3 million people, $120 billion, economy, as Alokesh said. And there are a lot of initiatives that we feel that the governments are also doing now to encourage GCCs in India, be it at a national level where CII is pushing for things, be it at a state level. Surprisingly, states in the southern part of India are sort of more mature in attracting GCC talent a little bit more. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh. So all of that is sort of going on. And I think Alokesh had also spoken about the fact that there has been an evolution curve. Apologies, we are consultants, we can't talk without slides. So that's a DNA defect in consultants. But essentially, I'm sure it's small, so let's not read it. But the maturity curve of GCCs has really increased, since the time they were here, right? From cost arbitrage, captive centers to today, GCCs in India are really an integral part of the parent organization. They're seen as innovation centers. They're seen as an extension of the headquarters rather than anything else. And there is a lot more of ownership that the GCCs are now having in India. Mind you, I think all of you come from very mature GCCs, so for you it must look like, yeah, we've been there, done that. But there are so many GCCs in India which are still on this maturity curve and have not yet reached the scale that we keep talking about. The question now is, what next? Where do we go from here? What I'm going to do is just illustrate a few dimensions that we've thought about as I've been working in this sector for the last 20 years, helping GCCs and enterprises think about GCCs as well. So there are some learnings that we have. Of course, before we get into the learnings, we all have to speak about, and Alokesh will make us speak about it, are the headwinds in terms of the geopolitics. You keep hearing about the Hire Act and the H-1Bs. But more than that, there are other things as well, right? There are alternate locations that are coming up from a GCC perspective. Poland is great, Mexico, Philippines. So there's a lot of competition out there from India as a geography. The talent war, we're probably living through it. I know John isn't, but others. He is the lowest attrition rate in the GCC industry. But essentially, talent is becoming hard to find and harder to retain. And so, that's the kind of headwind. We all speak about so many engineers and people that we are producing in India, but are they employable? And GCCs have to do a lot to actually, train them before they join in. So, sorry, this takes a little bit of time. I just want to start us off with 4 themes, and then, of course, we can think about other things as we go through the discussion as well. The next wave of GCC evolution will have many things, but these are the 4 that, at least in Oliver Wyman's mind, were front and center. First is about roles and outcomes. What do we as GCCs do in terms of the roles and outcomes that we are trying to point in the direction? So I think GCCs obviously are linked with the headquarters, right? The idea being, how do we elevate ourselves for measurable business impact? And this world has seen a sea change in that, right? No longer are we just measured on input parameters, are we just looking at stuff in the right way, but more and more outcome-related, business value-related outcomes are being measured. And again, I'm saying, most of you would be saying, yeah, we do that, but there are so many GCCs in India who are not yet mature to that level. Second one is very essential, right? From an era where we used to do GBS related work, IT, HR, kind of work, which is, by the way, great, we've now become core to the institution or to the headquarters, which basically means that we need very deep vertical skills. We need to understand the business in order to be productive for the business. And that has become a really important skill that GCCs are adopting. Not only the vertical skills and the understanding of the business, but also a lot of now horizontal skills, right? People were talking about Gen AI, and now it's in every conversation that you do with a business leader, you have to talk about Gen AI at least once. I sometimes in my mind count the number of times we say the word Gen AI or AI in our conversations, but at least 5 is my average. So I think there is Gen AI, ESG, analytics, all kinds of horizontal skills that are being built up. There is obviously the role that GCCs are now playing as a trusted autonomous bodies. And let me explain that, right? There was a time when there was a lot of decision making that was happening in the headquarters, and the GCCs were basically, working on that. But now, as we were also talking while we were standing here, the number of global leaders that are actually existing within the India GCCs has really increased. And so we've become trusted partners. We've become, and the others have to follow that in India from a GCC perspective. We've also become autonomous in terms of deciding what we want to do, in India. And of course, the last one about balancing across operational metrics as well as strategic metrics. Many of the leading GCCs that we speak with now have two scorecards, right? How are we doing on it from an operational perspective, and how are we impacting the parent organization from a strategic transformation perspective? So that's the first dimension. The second dimension that we are seeing increase, it's always been there, but it's now the situation is becoming critical, is talent, right? What do we do in terms of talent and make sure that we are able to retain, first hire and then retain the best talent in the industry. In our experience, the leading GCCs are building a very unique employee proposition, right? It's not only about career development and career acceleration. You guys are absolutely the best in terms of attracting talent on campuses. I think people, as Alokesh was saying, people want to come and work in GCCs today. Much better work-life balance. No disrespect, Krishnan. Much better work-life balance, better compensation. But essentially, they want more, and today's generation wants a little bit more. How do we make our GCC career as very attractive to people? The second thing that people have been working on is to create a next-gen talent engine, which is about partnerships with universities, with skilling institutes. Many of the GCCs, if you guys are all scaled GCCs, you would be almost running a university within your GCC. But there are partnerships, etc., that are increasingly being adopted so that we can get people that are skilled in next-gen stuff. The third one, to me, is very important. And this signifies coming of age of GCCs in India, and every mid-scale GCC that we speak with, this is one of the topics of discussion that always comes about. How do you integrate yourself in the culture of the parent company while maintaining a distinct India identity? And that becomes a very, very important topic for GCCs as they mature. It's a hard one. Because you've got opposing pressures on both sides. But then this becomes an important thing to sort of look at. And of course, how do you innovate in terms of retaining talent? As we all know, we probably don't have Gen Zs in this room, maybe Tarun. But I'm just taking Alokesh's joke to the next level. But I think the aspirations of work and what does work mean for them, how do we create those innovative things in the company that we are able to sort of attract that kind of talent. The next dimension, of course, is technology, right? And GCCs for a long time have been at the cutting edge of technology, for the parent organizations. But we also think that there is time to rethink the way GCCs are working on the technology front. Maybe controversial a little bit, but the balance between your frontier technology, where GCCs are essentially looking at, I will be the innovation hub, I will figure out the next cool product idea and the innovation in the company, how do you balance this with the need to do stuff that you were doing in the best, cheapest, fastest, and more efficient way, right? And there's always this discussion about, oh, I'm adopting a lot of Gen AI. We talk to a lot of GCC heads like yourselves, and the point of discussion is, I'm adopting Gen AI in everything that I do today. The question is, are you also balancing it with stuff that you're doing for tomorrow, for the headquarters, and how do you sort of balance the two out from a technology perspective? ROI is becoming more and more important. I think there was an era when we were all doing pilots, and we were feeling good about pilots. My own sense, and I could be wrong, is that most of these pilots don't scale. So we end up doing those pilots, we feel good about it, we do presentations and say we've done so many pilots, but the hard measure of ROI and scaling up is something that the technology function needs to start coming up with. The next one is about IP, and it goes in conjunction with my first point about saying, are we taking forward the IP or innovation that the parent has already done and doing V 2.0 of that, or are we creating IP and technology and innovation that is unique to India and India first, or GCC first? I think that's another challenge that or thing that differentiates very, very mature GCCs with the others. And of course, cybersecurity, ethics, and all the good stuff. And last but not the least, I think there is a new era that is unfolding in the GCC world where we are not alone. And why should we be alone? The idea here is, can we rely on partners? And of course, many of you already rely on partners, in some form or shape. But the era that is unfolding is about strategic partnerships that GCCs can now do. What is core to the company, what has got a lot of IP of the company, needs to stay within the GCCs. But are there things where other people can help and partner with you in the right way? And I think that's the whole fourth theme that we wanted to bring in. The partners could be academic institutes, the partners could be startups, the partners could be IT services companies, and IT services companies today are doing a whole lot in terms of partnering with GCCs in India. So I think the fourth one, without going into all the four dimensions, is about how do you partner well, and partnering also not from a perspective of saying, hey, you are my vendor, I'll measure you on time and material or stuff like that. How do we make sure that we partner with these institutes in a way that we are joined at the hip in the outcome that we are essentially promising to the parent organization? And I think that is the next, that will also define as one of the dimensions in the next evolution. I will finish my initial thoughts with these. So lots of good stuff happening. GCCs are maturing. We have stuff that is also coming in our face in terms of geopolitics and talent war. But four things: how do we describe our role? How do we manage talent? How do we use technology in the right way, and what do we use it for? And how do we partner correctly? In our mind, four essential dimensions of how GCCs would evolve in the future. I'm sure there would be many others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sumit. Very nice presentation. Four clearly defined takeaways and points, which I'm sure you are already thinking about, but just reiterating the points, so it's good to have. So let's start, like I mentioned in the briefing call, let's try and make this sort of a group discussion instead of you waiting only for me to ask a question, right? Even though I will intervene and ask questions in between. But let's talk a little bit about the H-1B visa fee. maybe do a little bit of a rapid fire on that, short answers, right? So all of us get into the mood of the discussion. The rise of fees is going to hit you probably more than anybody else, at least tangibly in this room. But there is also a certain amount of nervousness in the market. I'm seeing both strands, right? So as an editor, when I'm handling stories and news keep flowing in, I fail to introduce myself. I also handle the front page of the Mint newspaper. So handle as in I decide which stories go, and then I rewrite and polish those stories so that when you read them, they read well and they read accurately. But when I do these, I notice two strands coming. One is that people are nervous about the H-1B tax, then moving on to another form for a tax on the GCCs, right? And another which says that is going to actually give GCCs a leg up in competition with Indian IT services, is probably a game changer in that sense. So I wanted to ask you all, what is your thinking behind this? And what are you nervous? Are you ready? Since Kavita is the only lady in the discussion, we'll start with her. Ladies first. You can take the mic. No, we'll have to record, no? Otherwise we'll get your quotes wrong.
Okay, so when I talk, obviously I'm not just talking about Dell, right? But when this entire, I think 19 September is when it started. Okay, you could see the message groups just going on and on and on. And I think at least what I have seen, just because of the fact that one, okay, I have been with Dell for 22 years now. And I have seen policies going up and down. We have seen global economic crisis. We have seen COVID, etc. I don't see any nervousness. Maybe I'm just delusional, maybe. But the fact being that it is just reinforcement of the fact that GCCs are here to stay. The fact that we are having these conversations, the fact that you have an entire presentation around it, I don't see that fear that the world will crash. And without being disrespectful, I will say policies will come, policies will go. You can put a tax on the cost part, but there is a part which is the innovation, the resilience, the scale, everything. So we just have to see how is it that we get further on it, rather than saying that, oh God, what will happen next? So I think I'm not nervous. I just feel that we are okay, and we're kind of embedded in the global framework of fabrics. So all is well. We're good.
All is well. Murli, you agree with that? You're from the United States.
No, I think so. Fortunately, we are embedded in the parent company, so our friend there will have a better answer than me. But if you look at it, the very construct of a global center is based on what? Talent, domain, and a global delivery model. So when I read that news, my immediate reaction was opportunity. So, and it came at a perfect time when we were going through planning for 2026. And I felt after the meeting that there will be more a reason for them to really consider strengthening and elevating our growth plan. So that's how I saw it.
Okay. The floor is open for anybody. Yeah, Kishore.
Yeah,
Take the mic, take the mic. नहीं तो हम ऐसा कुछ छाप देंगे सर, फिर बोलोगे कि क्या छाप दिया, मैंने तो बोला ही नहीं.
No, Kavita said all is well, so even without Mike, I think everybody is well, right? So I sense an opportunity, right? One of the reasons is the shifting ecosystem, right? Like if you take Broadridge as an example, as a fintech vendor, 15 years back, all the banks that we were servicing never had a presence in India. Today, everybody is setting up a shop, a Goldman or a JPM, everybody's here, right? So you don't necessarily need to be in the US to service them, which means that you're not really dependent on the H-1B as much as you used to in the past. Of course, it might be a different story for the service folks, right? That's on the GCC lens, right? But I also think that for US, this is also an opportunity for them to filter the talent they bring into the US, right? Which is what Sam Altman and others are saying. Like, if you're going to pay $100,000, you really want the best of the Indian talent sitting in the US, right? And that can create a virtuous cycle of Indians being there in the US, leading some of the leading companies, and setting up more work in India, right? So I sense an opportunity for this. It may not play out immediately, but in the long run, I think this could be something that
opportunity at whose expense?
Opportunity at whose expense? I think the services company may
Let
have
me ask
to.
the services company. Krishna.
So before I get to the topic, I've had the experience of working in 2 GCCs. One was G Capital International Services, and then UBS when we were setting up in India. And then I sold that as a part of the leadership team and we sold it to Cognizant. Then I have worked in Cognizant and now in LTI Mindtree. And I've also bought 4 GCCs, and I've also now helped set up 3 GCCs in my current role. So I know a bit about this subject. From a H-1B visa perspective, if you see the majority of the H-1B visas, frankly, is going to people like Amazon, Google, Meta, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
If you see the IT services companies have a relatively very, very small number compared to.
It's been falling also.
It's been falling over time, and it's been a very small number of every incremental stuff that we've been adding. And if you look at GCCs also, they play a key role from an innovation and accelerating the innovation cycle, because it also gives a time advantage and working 24/7. Right? When the US is asleep, India is working, and it kind of continues. So we can't discount it, because in this time and age, when you have to accelerate everything faster, right? In fact, our tagline is future faster together. So when you have to accelerate things faster, GCCs become a very important part of the component, right? So from a H-1B visa perspective, what we feel is, yes, some of the work could move to near shore centers like Mexico, Latin America from a time zone perspective, Canada from a time zone perspective, whatever little is there of it. And I don't see any impact this year, because all of these notifications are going to apply for new applications, which is basically from next year onwards, right? So I don't see there is no impact, at least for the forthcoming future. I think it will only accelerate, because what is also happening is world has moved towards just body outsourcing to outcome-based, more agentic AI. In fact, we will have a much more larger digital workforce than human workforce now. Okay, now you can say where and digital worker doesn't need a H-1B visa, right? It can work out of anywhere, right? So if you frankly ask me, it's not that we don't see any impact, we see very minimal impact, right? The minimal impact could be like 0.3% or 0.03% from a profitability perspective. Again, we also see most of it being borne by the customers, given the limited quantum of it. And many of the clients anyway are setting up, we are also setting up a lot of nearshore centers any which ways in the US. So we already have, that will increase more. So that we don't see too much.
Makes more sense to do nearshoring than offshoring.
It makes more nearshoring. India, see, here also probably what will happen is some of the roles that will work out of India will be, maybe we'll have to work different time zones, a little bit extending to the night to give more coverage. So that could happen. But primarily, the whole purpose from an offshoring perspective was to accelerate and do things faster. H-1B visa, I don't think is going to matter too much. Yes, it'll, from an aspirational perspective of a large, the middle class Indian family which is sending students abroad or to studies, and then from their career perspective, yes, they will see that, hey, they can't have long-term probably careers. They're in that numbers that used to go before. But then India is also growing, so they will settle for opportunities here. That's a shift I see happening.
That's very interesting. Most of the IT stocks are getting hit like anything on the market, but your view is rather assuring.
I don't want to preempt many of the things, but yeah, you will see that in fact, we evaluate in detail. That's why I said, no, when people say this is impacted now, if you see all the clarification, there is no impact till next year. All these fightings are over this year, done. That's not going to impact at all.
Right. Okay. Who wants to go next? Yeah. Oh, you're behind me, no? That's the problem. Let me put this down. By the way, this is all customized to you, huh? So don't take somebody else's. Your name is here, written here. तो घर जाके पता लगा कि किसी और का है.
Okay, so I have been in US for 17 years, and I was one of the recipients of the H-1B visa. I believe that we had enough challenges and enough issues with the existing H-1B. What I see more than nervousness, because of the H-1B policy, the kind of nature of environment we see right now, the dynamic environment of the kind of news which we are getting on day-to-day basis, I think nervousness is more because of that. And I see also that H1B, this policy is going to bring a lot of opportunities for India in long run. Maybe in short run, there could be some nervousness in our IT services companies. But
what kind of opportunities for India?
So for India, I see that a lot of GCCs are going to be opened. Last year itself, we have seen that more than 5 or maybe 5. I'm not sure about the number, but I think these GCC got opened in Hyderabad.
2 every week.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that is the opportunity for India. That first of all, India has already established as a GCC hub in itself in this particular sector, and it is going to mature from here. And that is the opportunity I think we need to look for. So more than nervousness and challenge, I see opportunity in the long run.
Okay, great. John?
Do the second pharma company. I'm kind of in line with Kavita, actually. I think, from what I saw, what I read, what I observed, there's a net positive in opportunity. And yeah, we're all a little long in the game, and we've probably all seen policies come and go. And honestly, I think the same here. I'm feeling reasonably calm about it. I mean, Novo is a funny company, that we're a pretty large pharma company, possibly a little bit like Philips, a large pharma company, headquarters in a tiny country, right? So from the entire population of Denmark is a third the size of this city. So from a GCC growth perspective, skills and scale for Novo Nordisk, you're not finding it in Copenhagen. And so for us, I think whatever policies come and go, there's generally a net positive to the pharma company that I work for. And as in your presentation, Sumit, was beautiful in that respect, because as we drive both breadth and depth, it's critical that we continue this journey in India. And I don't think there's anywhere else in the world to do it, frankly, for the kind of work that we do in pharma.
Dattatri?
We work mostly with Germany, so I would say
that's why I came to you.
My exposure to H1B is, we don't have almost zero. Our business with US perhaps is less than 8 or 9%. So more than 90% of what we do is with Germany. But I would look at it like this. Maybe I would have better talent access because there are good people who may specialize in India. Because in a context that what you presented, what we need in Indian GCCs is more specialized talent. Because if you have to move up the value chain, you need to invest on good talent. Because a lot of GCCs in the cost arbitrage era were built on bottom of the pyramid, managing the cost structures. But I know we have to figure out how do we manage the cost competitiveness, which will not go away. But there's a time to invest on specialized skills. So rather than hiring a BTech in computer science or electronics from a tier 2 or tier 3 engineering college, perhaps I would go and hire a PhD in material science. I would hire a master's in power electronics. So which is a big shift. Perhaps I would be looking at it as a plus to look and hire and make a good offer for such kind of talent. So it's a plus very, very indirectly.
Yeah.
Although I don't thank Trump for that.
Hi. So
your company is French, right? Publicis?
We are owned. The group that owns us is French, which is Publicis, but otherwise,
I'll come to you for the German versus France thing.
Sure.
So obviously I'm not a GCC, but I could say one thing that location is no more a bias in my opinion. Innovation can happen from wherever you are. And that was one of the reasons when we sort of started our company, we always hired remote. And we've stayed remote even during COVID, post-COVID. And actually it gives you a different perspective to building something, to innovation. So I honestly believe that this whole H1B thing is going to affect the aspirations of an Indian student who dreamt of going to the US or studying in the US, working in the US, etc., they'll actually, in my opinion, suffer because they won't get our type of talent, and how we always say that good talent will come back to India. So eventually, it's going to just help India in the long run, in my opinion. And the other thing which Krishnan said, I totally agree, right? Most of the things are going to be agentic in nature. And once things are agentic in nature, you don't need to physically be around. Most of our work can happen remotely. Very little physical touch point is actually going to be required to do innovation. Obviously, you can do brainstorming and physically meet people, but that's what I stand for in terms of my thoughts on this.
Okay. Jump in. Vivek?
Yeah. Okay, I think the presentation was quite interesting. So if you look at the evolution of GCCs, just with this one policy and that we've been debating about, I don't think it's going to take out GCCs from a long-term perspective, right? Because we're talking about an evolution which has happened where it's beautifully articulated, where we were just from a cost arbitrage center, then we were doing a process optimization, then digital transformation, to the point that now we're looking at GCCs as more as an innovation hub, and all the parent companies are really looking at this as an extension than looking at it as just an offshore center. So it's going to be very difficult with this one or two policies that it's going to all end and the world's going to come down. Absolutely not. So while there is probably nervousness around a lot of news, including this one, I don't think from a long-term perspective this is going to have a great impact. And what Tarun did, Mr. Krishnan came up in terms of innovation. Today we're living in the world where we can do anything out of anywhere. Right? So you don't really need to have people travel there, be in a certain location, unless it is client-facing roles. And how many of it that we're talking about from a GCC perspective? That's the point I'd like to make.
Yeah, Brett, come next.
I think in this table we are all from Europe headquartered companies. I think so. So SPM.
It was deliberate. I put all you Europeans together.
No, SPM Offshore is also headquartered in Netherlands. I would take this in a different way. Ours is engineering, procurement, construction and installation company, EPCA company. I think the first thing Kavita was saying is how truly integrated your company with the global setup. For example, like the way we have set up things in India, it's truly integrated. You take any work, any project work, the process, tools, procedures, everything is one and the same. There is no difference. If you, I don't know, sit in Netherlands or sit in India, you don't see any difference at all. That's number one. And second thing is, we have right now excellent collaboration tools. So you don't have to be based in European countries to do the project work. Maybe short visits can help, but you don't have to be permanently based in Europe to do the work. So I would say with the same process, tools, procedures, and excellent collaboration tools, I don't see any significant impact at all. That's what I would say, allocation.
Wow. Everybody seems to be on the same page. I think Mr. Trump would be very happy that his policy has found a lot of resonance. Costa?
So, just reflecting, I think we're talking of H1B, but if you take a step back, over the last 2-3 years, the attractiveness of US as a destination has been going down, right? Due to multiple reasons, geopolitical and so on. It does have a bit of an impact on, let's say, the young population, but we're already starting to explore Australia, Europe, and some of these destinations for them to go to. I see two impacts on, what's happening around us, right? One, it's accelerating probably newer operating models that usually would have been quite challenging for each individual leader to bring up, because some of these uncertainties are pushing us to put on the table a lot more newer operating models onto the table. Second, when we take a look at cost, the conversations are already changing, right? With wage inflation, the labor arbitrage shrinkage, we're already starting to move away from saying, how can you start looking at us beyond cost? How do you get us into that value stream? And if you take a look at niche roles, cybersecurity, product, all of these, we are German based. It costs us probably 20% more cheaper than what's out there in Germany, but with a much higher, impact and talent. So on a lot of roles, if you're on that expertise stream, as some of us are talking about, we're not talking cost at all. We're more talking about what we can put onto the table, how we can shape the strategy, and therefore there's a lot of buzz around some of these H1Bs and all of these, but organizationally, the impacts are much more measured because you're not looking and reacting. You're more starting to say, okay, next 2 to 3 years, what are some of these, headwinds that are potentially going to come in, and how do you plan for those? Not easy considering, who's leading at this point of time in the US, but I think there is a certain predictability to Trump's unpredictability as well. And
well said.
Yeah, and now you're stopping to react. The first 3 months was reaction, panic. I think now everyone just saying, okay, let it flow. Wait for one more day, something will happen. But I think it's an opportunity globally, also for service providers to create newer operating models with the GCCs, right? I think that model has not been tapped in my mind so far, where how do GCCs really integrate with partners like LTI Mindtree and the others to really put a different value proposition to the global headquarters. Yeah. And we're seeing, we have done that in the past, but we're seeing a lot more of that coming in now.
Just a side question, Germany has some of the best technical universities in the world, right? TUM, there's Aachen, and there are so many others, right? Absolute top-notch. People die to get into a TUM, right? Why would you come to India to hire people with high skills when people from India are going to TUM anyway? The best of the best are going there to study.
Yeah, so, there are two things. One, Kavita saying scale, and that's true. But more than that, let's take a look at so we are in the BFSI space, right? In Germany, automotive is the hottest sector.
Yeah.
So a lot of graduates tend to go into these core areas, that are considered to be German, which is automotive, R&D, and so on. We're starting to see an influx of these into the software space and the financial space, because now organizations are starting to open up. But we don't see that much of a talent attractiveness to the non-automotive space yet.
Okay. I'll come to you.
I
we need to finish the first round.
So if I look at Publicis Sapient, right? Since you talked about the French ownership thing, so we are owned by Publicis Group, which is obviously the world's largest media and communications conglomerate. But Publicis Sapient is focused on the digital business transformation space. We're really a service provider, and kind of dual hatting, because what we've created in India for Publicis Sapient, and follows exactly Sumit's slide. This thing, we've been here for 25 years. We are an innovation center for what we do globally. We also work with clients directly. So we're also a service provider that's kind of working with clients directly. I think the core opportunity from India is absolutely unchanged and unwavering, which is you've got the ability, because what India has done, I don't think any other location has been able to do this. Everybody has tried. One, I think we've been still the largest English-speaking digitally native population. We have found the way to culturally assimilate with any geography we work in, which has been an immense amount of flexibility, whether it's Europe, whether it's North America, Asia Pacific, wherever. Cultural integration, assimilation, we think we're number one. Second, we have an inherent sense to be value focused because of just the education and how we orient ourselves. So which is why that the chart happened, Sumit. You move from cost arbitrage to innovation focus. What's the biggest change that happened? You've gone from just being a cost center that wants to be busy and keep billing to a cost code to saying, what am I doing this in service of? What is the value I'm creating? Because the minute you're value generating, you're business focused, your attributability of metrics is to growth and not just, am I providing a cost offset, right? So I think that's been another thing, big jump, and that's unwavering. That's not changing, it's only getting better. Now in the AI first orientation, this is what we tell clients as we help them set up their GCCs. If you're AI first, culturally assimilated, value focused, and the last one, integrated perspective. See, the other big benefit that India has that I don't think any other geography has at scale is that while I think engineering is a very well told story, the real genius of innovation is not engineering. It's engineering that gets married with product management gets married with design, gets married with your strategic focus, or being able to look around the business focus. You put that together, what you get is a very unique integrated perspective. You pick any GCC that has kind of jumped the value spectrum, they've always had a footprint which is more spread out than just, of course, the ratios will be different. I mean, that kind of makes sense, but they've always had a multifaceted presence. And as we work with clients as well, we always tell them that if you're looking for, if you're unimodal, you're like the fuel tank of a car. You have a larger fuel tank, you go further. But unless you're a transversal of the entire car, you're not going to create an inordinate amount of value. So for us, I think, on the current situation, I mean, we don't have an opinion on it because we're minimally impacted. But I think the main thing is, I think the core opportunity from India, I think in the GCC space, I think has never been more potent than it's before. And I use the word potent very specifically because potent is just about potential. Realizing it is still, it's like a T20, you're chasing a low score, doesn't mean you're going to win the match, you still got to put the runs on the board. Yeah. So I think what we have is an opportunity, and now we've got to make sure that we can kind of come through to that.
Okay, I have heard the word opportunity several times in this one round. Arvind.
Yeah, so I think we are talking about this topic in my view because it's unpredictable and it came just out of the blue, right? Nobody expected.
The latest is the pharma one, which I have not yet asked about.
Yeah, and I'm sure many more will start coming up, right? So I think just taking it in the environment, the way the geopolitical situations are, I think this GCCs that we are in India will find out a way and mechanism to flow through this journey. I think why I say this is because I think we have seen far more worse time in the last 30, 25, whatever number of years that we are in. I mean, if I take the example, all our GCCs, we are global capability organizations. So we don't leverage the capabilities which exist in India, but elsewhere in the world as well, right? So why not we strengthen those areas where we add value, leverage those capabilities where our parent organizations have in elsewhere part of the world, combine our efforts together and create more impact for our business, customers, or whosoever we are serving. So the way I see this is a more opportunity for us to create and to become more impactful GCCs rather than a service or a delivery GCCs. And that's where I see a big opportunity coming out of this whole thing.
Okay. Your presentation has created quite a stir in the...
No, I think most people have already covered the points. I would just like to advance what Arvind was saying. See, over the past many years, we've seen worse challenges. And whether it's GCCs or third parties, we've come out of it always shining brighter than what we were at before the challenge came. And with the time lapse that this one has, I'm actually very certain that both GCCs and third parties will come up with something. I mean, it's already a year and a half down the line. That's more than 4 times the time we need as Indians to actually find out a good solution to that. So I'm very sure all is well, but whatever is not well, we will make it well in the time.
Right, wonderful. Murli, you had a point to make before I move to the next.
I realize in the recent times, working with some of our stakeholders and teams over time, right? There was an era where we never had this problem. I know people spoke about 20 years and 30 years. I have to admit that the sentiment is real. It's geopolitical is great, but when you work with your colleagues, I have personally witnessed a shift over the last 2-3 years where either jobs are going away or there's a population challenge in the USA, and the feeling about them lagging behind the Europe, EU, etc. We've recognized that it is beyond a Trump as well, and we are witnessing behavioral changes too. So to your point, what we've done is we actually worked around it by creating newer operating models, not just being dependent on our parent entity, not being dependent on funds coming from our parent entity. We've figured out how to create newer revenue models over the last year or so in anticipation of what's coming. So I think it's when we say opportunity, it's important that we recognize that some part of it is real too, apart from policies, and gives us a chance to innovate where we want to go from here.
Great point. So thing is also that when you are talking about revenue models, GCCs, if I'm not wrong, were not supposed to be revenue centers initially, right? Now you are. So the point is, if you are a revenue center, that means you are catering to organizations beyond your parent, right? So you're one of the people who nodded when I asked about this, right? So if I were to put this open, like Sumit in his presentation, you made 4 takeaways at the end. There's talent, there's technology, and what are the other 2? Role. Roles and outcomes. Partnerships. Absolutely, and you spoke about partnerships. If we were to look at the GCC of the future, is it not into the distant future, but in the near term when you're already evolving, what is the next stage of the evolution? When we are talking about architecting the GCC of the future, what are we looking at? Are GCCs all going to become big revenue centers and even maybe service competition? Maybe Novo Nordisk GCC decides to service Bosch or something, right? I don't know, it's money that comes in, right? So just a thought, but I really like to open this up to share thoughts around what you feel is going to be the next level of evolution for GCCs. Anybody can start. Yeah. Don't need to ask me. Anybody can start.
We actually fall into that category that you mentioned, that we are a multi-format, GCC. Actually, GCC is the new name that is given to a 25-year-old company, right? We are always a GCC for the last 25 years. For whatever reason, it's highly amplified these days. So we run a book of about roughly $200 million business, which is completely beyond Bosch, nothing to do with Bosch.
Okay.
And
what share of the revenue would that be?
About 15%.
15%.
Yeah. So on a 1.7 billion that we turn out for the overall. I believe that GCCs would have a multi-format, operations. It will not be a monochromatic, cost-plus, or even a completely oriented to the products of the parent. So they would have multiple formats of value creation. The good thing, what I observe now is, never in the past, India was loved so much, especially by the European headquarter. So if I see, India growing at about 7% year on year, India becoming let's say one of the largest automotive players in the world, there's a lot of focus on Indian market. So if you ask me about let's say 5 years back, my India focus was about maybe 4 or 5%. We hardly focused on India. So today we have a special engineering focus on India, special product customizing focus on India, exclusive market-facing unit in India, which doesn't operate like a GCC actually. It actually operates market backward. It's not a capability forward organization. So there's a new hook for many GCCs in the form of value creation, because you open actually a new customer, new product possibilities for your parent. So your seat on the table at the headquarters is actually for new revenue streams, because there's so much of focus on India. So I would imagine a GCC actually going out to the market, GCC working on a very higher order research, a lot of product ownership. Let's say what the conventional work that you're doing, what we call in our company as a last man standing kind of work, is going to be there, but it will be led out of hyper efficiency, hyper productivity, and you leverage partnerships, as someone mentioned, and you don't do everything yourself. You will see a lot of GCCs outsourcing to the service companies in India, which was not so much in the past. So that format shift will happen as we go forward.
Okay. I'm just thinking of the next slide in your presentation. Yeah. What is the next evolution?
Yeah, no, and just taking off from what you were saying, I actually think the next evolution is going to be, we will drop the word C. We are no longer going to be global capability centers. We are going to be business units. That's one axis, right? Because as you become business units, because you will have end-to-end ownership of processes. Like you said, you will have ownership of markets. So that's what I think. And there's another axis, which I think this distinction between what do I outsource to a third party GSI versus GCC will also diminish. And I think an integrated or a hybrid or an augmented global business unit might evolve, where the third parties and the GCCs are sort of working together. So those are the two dimensions on which I think the next evolution could also be based on.
So with all the consultants should help us in calling it as a GVC, Global Value Center, or a Global Impact Center, rather than calling it as GCC. I think it is time to come, because everybody is adding a tremendous value. I mean,
why not Global Business Center?
Yeah, whichever way. I mean, at the end of the day, a business creates an impact or a value. It could, revenue is just one axis to it. Yeah. When I talk about Philips, I was just sharing that we talk about creating value for our patients, right? So when you talk about value for your patients, then it may not be a business unit, but it is an impact that you are creating. So just think on those lines, and that will give us a tremendous leverage. And I agree with, I think there was a comment here, the product-based organizations need to look at two things very, very sharply. One is the product management skills, and obviously improving the quality of services that we deliver from India. There are still gaps, and then we need to improve that.
Lalji?
Yeah, I totally agree, Arvind. Actually, I was going to mention that, but I think you came first. No, it's good.
Actually, aapka thunder.
No, I think it's very good because the journey started with cost for sure, and then we moved to skill, and then now we are more into like value creator, right? So how we are going to do that? I think that's where we have to focus more, and not only value creator but value realization, right? We are actually having very good plan to really hit our North Star with the partnering with the niche player and our strategic partners. We are not going to really increase headcount drastically, but kind of because we don't want to do everything by ourselves, right? We have very good partnership with the technology enabler, with our IT services partners, and some of the niche player in the AI market where we can partner with the startups. So I think we are going to create value, and we will be very much known for that, because capability is one, whatever we call it, business unit or value creator, but end of the day, we are going to be known for the value creator, from India, and that is going to happen very soon.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I think Sumit, what you said made a lot of sense. And I think it's more than just semantics of dropping the word center, right? Because I think there's a few different shifts that I see happening. One, I think the next era is going to be about innovation arbitrage.
Can we have silence in the room, please? Don't talk.
And I think the advantage of any of the moves forward is that they're all backward compatible. Because if you're doing innovation arbitrage, doesn't mean you're not getting the OpEx efficiency anymore. That'll still happen, but you're going plus. So I think if you focus on innovation arbitrage, I think then you're kind of stretching that, the ambition as much as possible. The second part, I think, is the mindset. I think there's a mindset that has to shift, and the mindset is about how do you view it as an ecosystem? Because my issue with the word center is that it assumes a flow towards something and not bidirectional, right? The reason I love the word ecosystem is an ecosystem means that every node can be a producer or a consumer. So it creates a peer level network of units that are creating value in the aggregate or independently. And that, I think, is a massive mindset shift, because then it is really, you're not seeking permission. I think today one of the big things that GCCs get into a conundrum on is permission versus ambition, right? The permission from the parent company and the ambition from, whatever the footprint here, right? So I think that starts to shift. So I think in the future, when you're innovation driven, you've got the ability to create that value independently, you're operating as a peer level network, then you're truly, just like any other expectation of being a growth engine. And the minute you're a growth engine, then the canvas is the same across the board. And there's also a flip side to it, because I see a lot of people that I work with, we have also fallen into this thing of a little bit of entitlement. That because we're India, we need to now have a seat at the table, rather than saying, are we actually earning that seat at the table? So I think the minute you're a peer network, then the guard wheels come off as well. Yeah. And then you have to be creating value purposefully, and you can't be saying, I should be anyway seen because I'm anyway lower cost. So, believe me, I have a seat anyway, and then I'm giving you some gravy on top of that, which is value addition, because then you should be primarily accountable for value creation, and that's a grown-up game as well. So.
I think that's lovely, this sort of permission versus admission. Yeah. And this may be for us, I'm kind of trying to get my head around this conversation because it may be a little bit different for the way that we run our setup. But perhaps if I take the clock back 3-4 years, 90% of the work that was done out of our centre was either with or for the headquarters, right? Okay. And we've driven depth, and now we've got global process ownership and all of that good stuff. But it's been a kind of binary directional thing. Now, the way I look at it, and certainly for our company, my previous role, I was a country general manager in one of our 90 affiliates. And as a country general manager, you've got a fixed headcount, yeah? And you want to put as many of those fixed headcount into customer-facing roles, into actually, in our world, doctor-facing roles or digital content development roles. But historically, it's been about 2/3 of my headcount has been customer-facing and 1/3 back office, pretty much across the world. I think for us, our new customer is not the headquarters. Our new customer is the 90 affiliates that we operate around the world.
Right.
And moving that 200 headcount in Malaysia or Thailand or wherever, or 500 in UK, into a 90% customer facing, 10% back office. But the back office is high-end stuff, not just transactional stuff, and that's where I think we're going. But it might be a little different to the setups that you run. Does that make sense to you as well? Or, yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think everybody sort of read my mind and said that we wouldn't have a term called GCCs.
Somebody read his mind
in
too.
10 years, right? So a lot of AI is happening probably, reading everybody's mind. I think and one other clarification, I work for an American company. I'm glad to be with all the European friends here.
Oh, I got it wrong then. I think SAP should have been there.
But I think international expansion is one of the key strategies for us, even being an American company, right? So I think just to talk some of the things my friends in the industry have spoken, right? The way I think GCCs would evolve, one of the analogies that I would use, and I'm not Jeff Bezos, but I'll use the term pizzas, right? So I think the way GCCs have operated for a long time is like, if you're making a 8-slice pizza, what the headquarters looks for you is to contribute 2 slices of that, right? Which means certain function, maybe a back office function or maybe a technology function. What's likely to happen in 10 years is with the headquarters is probably going to expect you to make maybe a different kind of a pizza. Let's just start with a personalized pizza, for example, right? And you own the entire making of the pizza, right? Which means the GCCs, to his point, you can't sit behind and say that I did my job, but the end outcome was not on my hands, right? Because now you're really, really moving to owning the outcome, owning the risks, owning the challenges. And that would demand a lot of leadership changes and leadership skills changes that needs to happen in India, right? And that's one, the operating model would change. Mindset has to tremendously change. And why do we think that this model will change from let's make a 8-slice pizza for US customer to a personalized pizza in India? Let's just take wealth management as an example, right? India and China are probably the biggest growing markets of HNIs and UHNIs. But their investment needs and their investment choices very different from what an US HNI or an European HNI person would want. Which means you cannot be doing that and building a product sitting in the US and making those decisions in US and UK or Europe. You would want people who understand this market, the dynamics, and what do your clients want. Essentially starts meaning that people in India, people in China are going to build locally and look to export globally, right? And that would, I think, demand a lot of different skills that is needed in the GCCs. And I think there is a responsibility on all of us here to actually also work with the partner ecosystem, the institutions and the academia, to make sure that our next level of talent is ready to grab this opportunity. Because this is going to be once in a lifetime opportunity, and if you miss it, it's going to be very, very difficult. Either we take it or the AI takes it. That's how I see it.
So there were two businesses I thought that were recession-proof. One was entertainment, one was healthcare, and pandemic changed that for us. So like somebody mentioned big tech. I come from Microsoft. I spent about 16 years there, and I moved into this world called GCCs. The exciting part, like one of our colleagues asked me, was to bring technology to healthcare. Little did I know that it's a whole different world, complex, legacy, conventional, right? But what happened there was, when we set up, we were very clear about the purpose, the how and the why. And we were not here for cost. We were not here to change legacy systems. We were here at a time when healthcare was looking to transform itself digitally. We were pretty much the last industry, the provider health space of healthcare. The pharma and life sciences have always been there. So when we set up, obviously, lack of better word, we call ourselves innovation center, not a capability center. For those who do not know Providence, we are about 170-year history in healthcare. Spread across 7 states, 120,000 employees, about $32 billion, right? But healthcare providers never stepped foot outside of US, not even outside of their regions, like a West Coast to East Coast or North to South, right? So it was that tough for us to build out. The reason I say that is when we did this and pandemic struck, there was a need for us to accelerate the digital charter. So our goal of why we are here was pretty clear. Talent, technology assets, and like you mentioned, the ecosystem, right? All our partners, IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, had large presence. So we leveraged that to accelerate our vision slightly differently. So year 2, we realized if we could do this for a 170-year-old health system, there were other health systems who were looking how to do that. Even today, 20% or less are in cloud. So we created this new operating model, like you said, Costa, where we thought we can be, or we can create, some of my colleagues will probably are doing at scale today. Those days I called it India as a service. Today we call it GIC in a box, way early in 2020. So that allowed us not only to be the transformation hub that we started out with, but also get to the goal of funding ourselves in the region, create a long-range planning where tomorrow we are a true revenue center, and in times like these, where business of care will not only be the only way to get dollars in, we are creating this new model. So that's the value addition that we were able to create in about 4 years. Youngest guy in the room, probably the youngest center in the room too, but there is opportunity, like you rightly said. And the point I want to make last is, you mentioned about, lastly, is what happens to services companies and GICs. I think never before have we seen a situation where there's a bigger need for 2 in a box. Mm-hmm. I've started using this line everywhere I speak, right? Size is not the new cool. Gone are the days where global innovation centers or global centers are going to build 10,000, 20,000. No offense to those who are big already. I don't see ourselves going beyond 3,500 smart engineers focused on innovation, working with physicians and clinicians. I'm going to count on LTI. I'm going to count on Infosys, Accenture to help me build the scale. We already do with IBM and others today. So that, I think, is the new model where there's an opportunity to coexist, co-build, and co-deliver as part of the new transformation that I see.
Right. I'll come to another American company after Dell, after
Sure.
Tarun.
So I had to say something after Kishore spoke about Amazon, right? Or Jeff Bezos. So the real story about Amazon website used to go down a lot in their early days. They were not able to scale very well at that point in time. They went ahead and built AWS, Amazon Web Services, which was their EC2, which the world uses right now. So every adversity for any company is going to create lots of opportunities. But how do you capitalize on those opportunities is with your talent. So some companies may have to redo their talent, some companies may have to hire different type of talented people specialized in their sort of GCC areas. But I see a lot of those changes happening, and I agree with Kishore that it's a once in a lifetime kind of an opportunity. If you're able to capitalize on it really well, India could see this literally ruling in many industries across the world. But if we don't act fast, if we don't act with resilience, with our talent that we have, we may miss the bus, and we may have to look at some other industry then to sort of become leaders in the world. So that's one of my thoughts on this. And the other thing which I feel for back office operations, at least the ones which are sort of taking away a lot of our time, those will get automated. And I agree with Murli on the idea of less is more. The world is also moving towards tools which will deliver. So we literally have this formula in our company. Every day we have to talk about some new tool of AI. And the reason we do this is to stay abreast with whatever changes are happening. And it's very important to stay abreast, in my opinion, because one person now can actually, with agents, do more than what he could do previously. We always required people to help us with different information sets, but now you get that while typing it on your Copilot, or you literally ask questions and you get answers, right? So I see a lot of less is more as one core principle, and innovation will come in only if we take this opportunity right now.
Kavita, what's happening? Tell us about your view of the next level of GCC architecture.
Little conflicted, but I'll start with the basic thing, right? So the slides which you had shown, right? It looks very nice. We started on a cost piece, then we said we'll have little bit of delivery, then we'll have little bit of product, and then we'll have innovation, right? And I don't know where we'll go, but you talk to everybody exactly to what do you want to be, right? We want to be the decision makers. It's the terminology which we tend to use internally is decision intelligence. That is the desired state, North Pole, whatever, North Star, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is we are not there. We should get there. Why are we not there? And this is where a lot of you may not like it. The fact is simple. Before AI came into the room, every conversation was about sustainability. Everybody was building a sustainability watchtower. We have some 500 things. AI came, we dropped sustainability. There is no conversation. Maybe it comes in bits and pieces with AI. Let quantum come, we will drop AI. Why? For the simple reason that because that is what everybody is doing, we should be doing. Long story short, if you want to get there, exactly to your point, this conversation of ITES versus GCC versus has to stop. We all spoke about co-creation, collaboration, ownership, all co, but the fact is it's not happening. We talk about academia, the speed at which or the pace at which we are moving, it's not there. So ideal state would be, as Dell, as I said, 22 years, every function has presence in Dell. I want the decision making to be here. I will not go and ask for that seat on the table because I don't know whether I have proven it to them. It will take time. We should get there. But then we need to have our own point of view. The convergence in terms of technology, don't talk AI, don't talk quantum, talk about convergence of all of them. I don't know how to do it right now, but maybe that's what we need to look at. But I'm telling you, give it 4 more years. We will be sitting in the same room and we'll be talking about quantum. Seriously. So this is my view. Please let me know what you're typing. Quantum. Okay, we need to check that, okay? So it's just that the partnership has to be together. We all have to work together. We all